At a time when her life should have been filled with joy, Ava's world was instead clouded with sorrow. Her husband, Leo, had abandoned her after the birth of their child, accusing her of infidelity because their baby was black. But when he returned 3 years later, the truth that came to light would shock them both. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you enjoy stories like these, don't forget to subscribe for more captivating narratives. Let's dive into this story. The day Ava gave birth to her baby was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of her life. The labor room was filled with the sounds of her cries as she pushed with all her strength, the pressure of the moment overwhelming her. She was surrounded by doctors and nurses who cheered her on, offering words of encouragement. Leo, her husband, was at her side, holding her hand tightly, his eyes filled with concern for her. After what seemed like an eternity, a loud cry filled the room, signaling the arrival of their baby. Ava let out a sigh of relief as she lay back on the bed, exhausted but happy. The nurses quickly cleaned the baby and placed him in her arms. At first, Ava felt a sense of peace, the little life in her arms a symbol of their love. But then, something didn't feel right. The room, which had been filled with the chaotic sounds of labor, had grown eerily silent. Ava blinked in confusion and looked around. The doctors and nurses were watching her with uneasy expressions. She glanced down at her baby and froze. The little boy in her arms was not what she had expected. He was a healthy baby, yes, but his skin was dark, a deep shade of black. Ava's heart skipped a beat. She was white, and so was Leo. How could this be? Was there a mistake? Maybe a mix-up at the hospital? Ava's hands trembled as she held the baby, who had stopped crying, seeming to calm in her arms as if he recognized her as his mother. But her gaze shifted to Leo, and what she saw shattered her heart. He had pulled away, his face twisted in pain and disgust. "You cheated on me," Leo whispered, his voice filled with disbelief and anger. This baby isn't mine." Ava's chest tightened, the words hitting her like a physical blow. "Leo, please, I don't understand. I never cheated on you," she pleaded, but Leo wouldn't listen. "The only way this could happen is if you were with someone else, with a black man." His words were harsh and accusatory. Ava tried to reach out to him, but Leo stepped back, his eyes filled with rage. "I can't do this," he spat. "Our marriage is over." Ava watched in horror as Leo turned and stormed out of the room, leaving her alone with their baby. Her mind raced, her body numb with disbelief. How could this be happening? She had never been unfaithful. She had never even considered being with anyone else. The baby she held in her arms was their child, and yet Leo was convinced it wasn't. The nurses, having witnessed the exchange, gently took the baby from her to clean him. Ava sat there in shock, her thoughts a swirling storm. She couldn't understand what was happening. She had never cheated on Leo. They had been through so much together. And now this, it felt like her world was crumbling. For the rest of her hospital stay, Ava was a shell of herself. Leo never returned, and his absence left her feeling even more isolated. She tried calling him, sending him messages, but he ignored everything. He had already made up his mind. Their marriage was over. Ava eventually left the hospital, clutching her newborn son, Ryan, to her chest. She returned home, but it wasn't the same. Leo had taken his things and left, staying with friends who refused to tell her where he was. People in their community began to whisper, casting judgment on Ava. The town had already decided she was a cheat, and she couldn't escape their cruel eyes. Ava's days were filled with overwhelming sadness. She had to face life as a single mother, raising Ryan on her own. But through it all, she found strength in her son. His eyes, so much like hers, reminded her that life could still be beautiful, even in the face of such heartbreak. He would smile at her with a grin so bright that it melted her heart, making her believe, if only for a moment, that everything would be okay. She never stopped hoping that Leo would return, that he would come to his senses and realize that she had never betrayed him. They had even chosen the name Ryan together before the birth. She clung to that hope, even as the days turned into weeks, then months. But Leo didn't return. 3 months later, Ava had begun to adjust to life without Leo. She had accepted that he wasn't coming back. The pain of his absence slowly gave way to the reality of single motherhood. She moved to a new city, hoping to start fresh. Ryan was growing up quickly, and Ava did her best to provide for him. She found a small job that allowed her to work from home, so she could be with him at all times. Though the gossip in the neighborhood followed her, Ava didn't care anymore. She focused on her son and their future together. They spent their days walking through the park, playing in the sunshine. With every passing day, Ava grew stronger, and her bond with Ryan deepened. She didn't need anyone else. She had him, and that was enough. Then, 3 years after Leo had walked out of her life, everything changed. One morning, as she was preparing breakfast for Ryan, there was a knock at the door. Ava frowned, wondering who could be there. When she opened it, her heart nearly stopped. Standing on her doorstep was Leo. He looked both surprised and relieved to see her, as though he had been waiting for this moment for years. Ava didn't know what to say. Her mind raced with 100 questions, but her first words were simple and blunt. "What are you doing here?" Leo took a deep breath and dropped to his knees in front of her. Tears welled up in his eyes as he begged for her forgiveness. "I was wrong, Ava. I should have believed you. I thought you had cheated, but I was wrong." Ava stood frozen, unsure how to react. Leo explained how, after everything that had happened, he discovered a terrible truth. His father, who had always been his hero, had been diagnosed with leukemia. The doctors had told him that he was the only one who could save his father with a bone marrow transplant. But when they tested his DNA, it turned out that Leo wasn't biologically related to the man he had called father all his life. Leo's mother confessed to him that she had had an affair with a black man and had become pregnant with Leo, but she had told her husband that the baby was his. Leo had never known the truth, and now, with the diagnosis of leukemia, everything had come crashing down. Leo knelt before Ava, his face full of regret. "Ryan is my son. I'm sure of it. I want to prove it to you with a DNA test." Ava let out a bitter laugh. "I already know the truth, Leo. I never cheated on you. You made a decision to leave me without ever giving me a chance to explain. You left me to raise our son alone, and you ruined my reputation in the process. You never cared for him, and you never cared for me. You had your chance, and now it's too late." Leo pleaded, promising to be a better man, a better father. But Ava wasn't listening. She wasn't interested in his empty promises. He had abandoned her when she needed him the most, and now he wanted to come back? It was too little, too late. "Get out," Ava said coldly. "If you come near me or Ryan again, I'll call the police." Leo stood, tears in his eyes, and walked away. He had lost everything: his wife, his son, and the family he had once taken for granted. Ava watched him go, her heart heavy but resolute. She had finally found peace, and nothing would make her let go of it now. What would you have done in Ava's shoes? Would you have forgiven Leo, or would you have made the same decision she did? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next story.